All right, so let's kind of refresh what we did on Friday so that we can remember some of the things that we do every time we get a timed writing. All right, so when we looked at the past, or when we're looking at the prompt, first of all, we look at the prompt. What are some things that we need to do when we get a prompt? Like, what was the steps, some of the steps that we went through just looking at the prompt? What did we do, Courtney? Okay, we found the task, first of all. And remember we said, like, we look for marker verbs, right? So writing an essay is not a marker verb, so analyze. So we found the task, and then what did we do with that task? We paraphrase it in our own words. Good. Okay, what else did we do in the prompt? Yeah, we defined, like, so what did we define in there? Epidemic, we looked at epidemic, so we define any words that we can. Now, can we do that on the day of the test? No, but we can use our own context, right, our own understanding, and kind of create our own definitions, right? All right, if there's usually a word, if there is a word in the prompt that College Board thinks that you may not understand, majority of the time they will give you that definition within the prompt. So we just need to make sure we recognize that. What else do we do with the prompt? Like, we create context or find context. So for this one, there's no historical context, but we had to create, and that's what question number 1 did for us, right? Is we created context for our understanding of scientific research before we got it. Okay, good. So and we mark everything in our prompt, right? We go and find. So a couple of things that we do find, and we didn't talk about this on Friday, is we look for what's called the rhetorical triangle. Okay? In the rhetorical triangle, we are looking to identify the speaker, the audience, and the purpose. And I'm going to say we didn't do audience for this one, but audience kind of informs us of how messages are going to be given to us, what's said, what background's given to us. So let's quickly talk about, like, who is the audience besides America or the reader of the book? Who would be interested? Who is this written for? Okay, so one, it could be written for scientists. Who else? Is this a book purely about scientists or for scientists? So who else might need to read this book? Okay, historians. Who else? It's about science and scientific research and perceptions of scientists. So who else could be, like, the audience for this? Students of what? Okay? Okay? Y'all are missing the point. If this is written to inform us about scientific research. Yes. People who need to understand the process. People who think they understand the process but don't really understand the process. So that's speaker, audience, and then purpose. And we find our purpose for reading in there, right? Their purpose for writing this. Okay, so that's what we want to look for when we are looking at the prompt. What can we pull out of the prompt that gives us answers to the speaker, audience, and purpose? All right, then we went into the passage. What are some things that we did in the passage before we even started reading? We numbered the paragraphs, okay? What else did we do? Do what? We cut it in half. So we found a way to cut it in half. And what were some of the things that we wanted to look for that we suggested were ways to cut the passage in half? Okay. Good. So lengths of paragraphs, is there a trend? Short to long to short, long, short, long, right? We also said, like, a shift sometimes in the columns from the bottom of the first column to the top of the second. Do we notice anything there? Worst case scenario, we divide there. And then there's one more way that I told you to quickly look for.
Like seeing how many paragraphs there are.
Okay, so if you can't find anything and you can't find any of those trends, then you'll just divide it in a number of paragraphs in half. And then also we said you could look for transitional words. right? Sometimes at the first of the sentence is there a transitional word which suggests a shift from one idea to another, right? On the other hand, however, right? Those kind of shifts. Good. What else did we do? We looked at the background, but what did we do? At the top of our page, we wrote down like what our purpose for reading is. Like, what are we looking for? Okay? So, can we agree that a couple of things? Many times, and I think we talked about this on Friday, many times when you annotate, you can annotate because y'all know how to play school. Meaning, if I tell you to annotate, you can write words on your paper that look like you know what you're doing. Agreed? And then you go to write, and you don't know what you're doing. Right? A lot of times we look at our annotations and we go to write, and we're like, okay, I don't see how my annotations even did anything for me in the writing. That's why many of us over the years have stopped annotating when you've had to write something because you haven't seen any worth or value in it. So what we're trying to move you towards is the idea of not necessarily pointing out devices and things, but tracking like trends or looking at the characteristics. So our purpose is to find characteristics of scientists or scientific research, right? So that's what we annotate for. That will transition over into our writing. Okay, good. Nice quick overview of what we did. Okay, so turn to your second page. So this is like the first side. This is your left side of the packet, right? This is on the right side of your packet. So I'm going to refer to page numbers. So look at the bottom right-hand corner. Notice that that page has a page 5, right? Tonight for homework, you're going to work through page 8. Okay, so you will stop at page 8. See the page numbers? Okay. All right, so let's go back to page 5. I will walk through page 5 with you, and then I'll give you like the last half of class to work together. All right? All right, so a couple of things. How many of you, when you are going to find evidence, over the years, how many sentences have your teachers told you, okay, find a piece of evidence and write X number of sentences to explain it? What have y'all been told? Let me ask that question again. In the past, you've been told to choose evidence, correct? Everybody nod your head. What do they tell you to do after you do the evidence in your paper? Explain it. Okay? How many sentences do they usually tell you around need to follow your piece of evidence? 2 or 3. Okay? How many of you are good with the first one? Like the first one, I've got. How many of you, the second and third one, you're like, I've got nothing, except for saying the same thing over and over again? Oh, y'all better raise your hands, because all of us are there. Okay, so I'm going to try to fix that for you in a couple of ways. So, 1, I tell you to find what I call high dollar evidence. High dollar, yes.
Can I focus this?
Sure, don't ask. High dollar evidence is evidence that you can write 2, 3, 4 sentences about. So here are some things that we look for. So in the annotation, so when we annotate, I look for a couple of things. 1, if there is a list, I always analyze a list. Okay, and I'll tell you why, because our first piece of evidence is a list. If there is a semicolon, I analyze a semicolon because I look at what is before and what comes after the semicolon. The other thing I do is if there is a dash, I analyze the dash. And I analyze, again, what's before and after the dash. So those are pieces of evidence that if they are in there, I'm like, yippee, that's something that I know that I have 2 or 3 sentences worth of analysis to do. Okay? All right. So as we go through this next one, I'll show you what I mean by high dollar evidence. All right? So let's reread. This is paragraph number 2. Right? Remember for NIMSY, whenever we talk about a passage or a part of a passage, they're going to pull the paragraph out above so we don't have to flip back and forth. All right. To be a scientist not only requires intelligence and curiosity, but passion, patience, creativity, self-sufficiency, and courage. It is not the courage to venture into the unknown. It is the courage to accept, indeed embrace, uncertainty. For, as Claude Bernard, the great French physiologist of the 19th century, said, science teaches us to doubt. So there's just a couple of things that I would jot down as I'm reading through, right? There's a definition. What did I say I put hearts around? Conjunctions. For a couple of reasons. Because I feel like when I'm annotating, I can track. Sometimes there's a trend in conjunctions, especially here. When we go from ands to but, we know that the but is like a switch of something, right? So if there's a conjunction of a but, I can also look at that. That's high dollar because I can look at what comes before it and what comes after it because it's a shift, a change, and something, okay? All right. So let's look down at the chart. Question number 1. Berry argues that scientists cannot just be intelligent and curious. Examine Berry's lists of necessary traits. Explain the implication of each trait as it relates to Berry's argument. So, remember I told you that this class, like, if I were to ask you right now, what does passion mean, you could give me a definition of passion. Agreed? Like your own definition. What we need to do is, as much as we can, we need to look up the definition of words when it comes to lists or anything that's important like that, because there is some depth, there's some weight to the value of their words and their definitions. Sometimes we don't understand the full extent. So what I'm going to add in this is I'm going to add a definition on the left side, because what I think is it's going to help our explanation. And then implication. Somebody look up what it means to imply for me. You'll be using your phones quite a bit today to look up words and definitions. Somebody look up what it means to imply. Once you get it, spit it out.
Strongly suggest the truth or existence of something not expressed, stated.
The truth of something not expressly stated. So, when we look at this in relation of what Berry is trying to tell us about scientists, this list, he's implying that the public doesn't understand something. Right? So when we look at each word, we have to say, what does the public not understand about that trait in relation to scientists? So let's look up the first word. Y'all can kind of work ahead if somebody wants to kind of look up future words on this list. Somebody give me the definition of passion.
Strong and barely controllable emotion.
Barely controllable emotion. Okay. Why must a scientist have passion? Don't use the word to talk about its implication. What does the general public not understand about the value of passion in science? Why must a scientist have passion?
Yes, they'll love what he does.
Okay, that's, yes, why?
Because in a field where your work can be ripped to shreds in the matter of seconds, if you don't have that drive, you have absolutely nothing.
Okay, so passion creates a drive, good, right? And without it, scientists can't, what'd you say?
And scientists won't have any grounds to continue.
So notice the difference, all right? So I'm not giving the definition of the word. I'm saying now that I know the definition, how does that relate to scientists and what they do? Okay? Next one, patience.
The capacity to upset or tolerate something without being angry.
Tolerate, say that half again for me, Leah.
Tolerate without being angry.
Okay. Why must scientists have patience?
Because when their experiment fails or something, they can't just give up.
Okay, so they must tolerate continued failure. Good. And would we say in scientific research, is there more failure or success? Failure. Way more failure. Okay, good. Creative. What does it mean to be creative?
Use of imagination.
And I think it also says, or original ideas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that a lot of people, when we say creative, their automatic answer is think outside the box. Okay, I'm going to tell you that doesn't mean anything. What box? What kind of thinking? That would be my question to you, right? So when you say creative, now you say, okay, use of an imagination. What does that mean? Well, use of original thought. That original thought is really what we're looking at. Now, what is Barry implying? Why must a scientist be creative? Jordan?
Because everything about science, most of it is unknown information, so you have to make new ideas to further science.
Good. Most of science is unknown, so the original ideas. Now notice how I'm using the definition to help kind of write my analysis, right? Most of science is unknown, so the original ideas drive progress. Good. What else would we say? Where else does original ideas come into play? Why must they have it? Okay, good. So they might lack the resources, so they have to come up with a new way of doing something. And then wouldn't you also say they have to come up with new approaches, right? For each failure, if this one attempt failed, they're going to have to find a different way to get some information, right? They can't just continue to do the same thing over and over again and continue to fail. They'd have to stop and say, how can I approach this differently to get some success? All right, what about self-sufficient?
Being able to do something without outside help.
Okay, good. Why is that valuable for a scientist?
Help won't always be readily available.
Why?
Not everyone will always agree with your hypothesis.
Exactly. So help may not always be possible because sometimes they go against the majority, right? So they may be the one in a crowd saying this is not going to work. If they are the one in the crowd that's saying that, nobody else is going to jump to their help and go, oh yes, let's do this, right? They're kind of on their own. Very good. What about courage?
Doing something that's frightening.
Okay. Why must a scientist have courage?
The normal times you're challenging beliefs that have been believed for a number of years.
Yeah, like centuries, right? Could be. So they're challenging beliefs. So they have to have courage to do that because why? If they are challenging these beliefs that have been around for hundreds of years, what are they doing? Like them personally.
They're trying to establish that something is currently wrong with the beliefs.
Okay, so what does that do?
They're almost like stating that they're higher than the scientists that already discovered it.
Right. I mean, they're kind of putting their their reputation on the line, right? So when they're saying okay, what we've thought of for the last 100 years is wrong, they're putting at stake their professional reputation, right? If they go in and they are proven wrong, they've just kind of put this hypothesis out there that people are like, well, duh, it's wrong. You're stupid, right? So they're putting their livelihood on the line by challenging this. So you have to be courageous and able to do that. Okay. So talk about high dollar. If we took this piece of evidence, just this one sentence, I would not define every word and look at the implications for every word in my analysis. I might pick 2 or 3 of the main ones. That alone is 2 or 3 sentences right there. Yes, of analysis of the purpose. Not what they mean, but the purpose of Barry showing us that list. Okay, now let's look at what is served through the list. So the very first thing as a whole, we want to look at a piece of analysis. So when we look at the sentence, notice that there is a but, which means we can look at what comes before the but and what comes after. So the list as a whole, what purpose does it serve? Look at the before and the after, the but. What is the purpose of that list? Okay, why is he showing us that? Good. Abigail, go. Oh, jeez. Good Lord. Do you go by Abby too?
Me?
You?
No, I go by Abigail.
Do you go by Abigail too? Oh, jeez. Okay, in harmony, y'all say it together. No, I don't care. One of y'all say it.
Okay. Because people, they stereotype as like scientists needing intelligence and curiosity, but they don't really think of these other qualities.
Right. The first half is like the stereotype. Of scientists, and after the conjunction, he shows us the true or needed traits. Okay? So, again, Katie, what you said was correct, but I wanted you to look at the 2 parts of it, right? So, now that's the whole. Now let's look at the order of the list. Now we can analyze, why does he give us the list? So whenever you see a list, it could be a list of words like this one is, traits. It could be a list of ideas or concepts. Why that order? Why the order? Why does he start with passion? Why does he not start with self-sufficiency, then courage, then patience, then passion? Why passion, then building to courage?
And if you like really don't care about something, you're not necessarily going to do that way before you really want to stand up for it.
Okay, so tell me, you are right. So tell me, why the order? What do they have in relation to each other? Yeah, they build or they're ranked in the order of necessity, right? So basically what you're looking at is that you cannot have patience for something, right? You cannot risk your reputation and be courageous to risk your reputation if you could care less about something, right? So you must first have the passion in order to have the patience. Does that make sense? So look at what we just did. This is what I call high dollar because you have the bits and pieces of the list to talk about. You have the list in its entirety and you have the order of the list. That in itself is 5 sentences at the very least of analysis of one piece of evidence. So when I say you need high dollar evidence, that would be something that I would choose. Yes? Hashtag I also say characteristics you need in AP Lang. Yes, y'all are like, I don't get that. You'll figure it out. All right, let's look for the second one. Second sentence, or second question. What is the purpose of the anaphora? Did we get to the antithesis of the last one? No. So we learned on the last page what an anaphora is. What's an anaphora? Look on the previous page that we worked on. What is an anaphora?
The repetition of beginnings of sentences or phrases.
Okay, so where is the anaphora in sentence 2 and sentence 3? It is. We also have antithesis. That was in question number 3 that we didn't cover. It's antithetical. What does it mean for it to be antithetical or an antithesis of? Yeah, so antithesis is like it's the opposite of. So where is the antithesis of the it is? Yep, it is not. So there are the two pieces, right? It's an anaphora. It is, but it is also antithetical because it is saying what it is not. All right. What is the purpose of it? So the first sentence is the it is not this. What is the value of him showing us what it is not? Look at what it says. It is not the courage to venture into the unknown. Again, look at what he did with the list. Why is he telling what it is not first before he tells us what it is?
So you don't get like the wrong idea.
Which is, go back to what we answered in the first couple of questions. Yeah. So the second sentence breaks the stereotype, or actually shows the stereotype. I would say shows. And the third sentence does what? The first sentence shows what the perception of the public is. The second sentence shows what? Yeah. So notice there's a trend in both the list and the anaphora and antithesis that he is continues. So the organization in this body paragraph is that he shows us the stereotype of what the public believes and how they are wrong. Right? All right. Why does Barry choose to offset the word embrace with a dash? So notice that it's except, indeed, embrace. So we want to look at what's in the dash, in between the dashes, what's on either side. So when he says, it is the courage to accept. What does the word accept mean? What connotation does the word accept give you? If you accept something, what does that mean? That you what? What role do you have in accepting something? You had to accept the fact that you are in my class. Tell them just to push the door. Why do we use this? What role did you have in accepting that I was your teacher? So it's very passive. Probably where y'all are. You have just dealt with the fact that you have me. I would rather you embrace it. What does the term embrace mean? You have a choice, right? That's very active. I would rather you not just accept, the fact that you got me. I would rather have you embrace and love and welcome and celebrate the fact that you have me. You may not be doing that yet. In May you will. All right, so now let's look back. Why does Barry offset it? Courtney? Okay, so it, again, his definition is where? The before the dash or in the dash? Okay, so again, what is he doing?
established stereotype.
Yep. And shows that scientists choose to do what they do, even knowing that there will be continued failure. So, I could have you write a whole paragraph just about those 3 sentences. This is what gets you into analysis, these questions. Does that make sense? All right, so here's what I want you to do. You have the rest of the time to work in groups to answer all these questions. Now here, let me tell you about my theory in working in groups. Working in groups, the purpose of us working in groups is so we begin to hear and have the conversations that we just had together. You have those conversations with each other. It doesn't do you any good just to kind of toil on your own and just kind of work through and struggle on your own because you're not hearing what other people are thinking. Okay? When we work in groups, group work is never a division of work. Right? You do page 5, I'll do page 6, you do page 7, you do page 8, we'll share our notes. That doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, it gets the work done, but you're not learning. So I'm going to tell you many times throughout the year that I need you to nerd it up. Okay? So nerding it up is what you're going to do here. You need to find a group of people. I suggest usually staying within your own class, or at least people that have me, because then our language is similar from other friends, right? Other classes do the exact same work that we do, but may not have the conversations that we have and the language that we have, right? So I tell you to nerd it up somehow. Best way to nerd it up is to find a place to gather together. Panera is my place because I can sit at my table, I can order macaroni and cheese, and they bring it to my table. Coffee to my table. Like chocolate croissants to my table. Like, it's awesome. I just sit there and order, and they bring me the stuff. I don't even have to get up, right? Panera is awesome. Another great place is like Market Street. Market Street, 2nd floor. Nobody goes there except for old people. It's a great place to go. Some of us may not even know that there's a 2nd floor at Market Street. There is. Again, they have macaroni and cheese. I mean, it's a common theme with me. All right? Places that are hard, Starbucks, because it's always packed. It's always packed with yoga pant wearing moms that don't have anything else to do. Right? So find a place to nerd it up. Friend's house, wherever, I don't care. But find a place to nerd it up. It will be your saving grace throughout AP Lang is to have a group of friends that you work together through, struggle through, cry with, whatever. What I'm going to suggest to you, or I'm going to ask you to do, is I'm going to ask you not to make sure that nobody's left out. Some people may prefer to work alone. That's fine. What I would ask of you is, hey, if you see somebody working alone, can you say, hey, do you want to join our group just for today? Just come join our group, right? That's all I'm asking of you, okay? You have today to finish working. It's not that long. And then you need to finish up through page 8. All right? If you'll quickly turn to page 6 and let's look at the metaphor. I want to quickly tell you about the metaphor. When you look at a metaphor, y'all have been used to, this is question number 2, y'all have been used to telling people what the metaphor means. I need you to identify in a metaphor the pieces and parts and what they are being compared to, right? A metaphor takes 2 unlike things and compares them. So you need to identify the piece and part of the metaphor and what does that represent in relation to scientific research. And then tell me what is the purpose of Barry using that metaphor, not what the metaphor means. Okay? Fair enough? All right. Make googly eyes at friends and go.